The Rolls-Royce arrived on a Wednesday morning, hauled in on a flatbed like something defeated. Sutton Mercer watched it come down the ramp from the doorway of his garage, wiping his hands on a rag that hadn't been cleaned since Tuesday. The car was a ghost, midnight blue, maybe 3 years old, and it sat on the flatbed with the particular stillness of a machine that had simply stopped cooperating. Not wrecked. Not scratched. Just done. Behind the flatbed came a black SUV, and from it stepped a woman in a charcoal blazer who moved across the gravel lot like she was walking through a lobby. She had the posture of someone accustomed to rooms that went quiet when she entered them. She looked at the garage, hand-painted sign, 2 bays, a rusted Dr. Pepper machine by the door, and for a moment she didn't look like she was going to get out of the SUV at all. Then she did. "I need to speak with the owner," she said to no one in particular, because the only person standing there was Sutton. "That's me," he said. She looked at him the way people sometimes looked at the garage, like she was recalculating something. Her name was Whitmore. Helena Whitmore. She ran Whitmore Capital out of Chicago, managed something north of $4 billion in assets, and her Rolls-Royce had been sitting dead in a climate-controlled facility for 11 days, while a rotating cast of specialists, 2 from the manufacturer's certified service center in the city, 1 flown in from the UK, an independent diagnostics firm out of Detroit, had collectively charged her $340. Zuzu and produced nothing except longer and longer reports explaining what they didn't know. Sutton listened to all of this standing in his doorway. "How'd you find me?" he asked. "My assistant found you," she said. She said a man named Farley at the parts distributor in Rockford told her that if the car people in Chicago couldn't fix it, the only person worth talking to was a mechanic in Dunmore who used to work for. "Farley talks too much," Sutton said. He looked at the car. "What does it do when you try to start it?" "Nothing," she said, "completely nothing. No sound, no dash, nothing." "Did the specialists pull codes?" "They pulled everything." The Detroit firm ran a full network scan. 3 days, 2 technicians. They said the results were inconclusive. He nodded slowly. "You can leave it," he said. "I'll look at it this afternoon." She blinked. "You don't want to hear the full diagnostic history first?" "I'll read the reports if I need to," he said. "Sometimes it's better to start with the car." She stood there for a moment, and he could see her deciding something. He'd seen that look before, on clients who'd driven 40 minutes to a garage in a town they'd never heard of and were only now understanding what that meant. They came because someone told them to come, and then they arrived and second-guessed the whole trip. "I'll have my driver wait," she said finally. "He can wait at the diner on Route 9, Sutton said. "This might take a while. Or it might not." Dunmore, Illinois had 2,200 people and 1 traffic light, and Sutton Mercer had lived there for going on 6 years. He'd come back after Claire died, back to the town where he'd grown up, back to the garage his father had run for 30 years before his knees gave out. Before that, he'd spent 15 years at Hartwell Automotive Group in Chicago, finishing as a senior systems engineer on their electrification team. He'd worked on diagnostic architecture. He'd written protocols. He'd trained technicians at service centers across the Midwest. He'd also spent those 15 years largely absent from a marriage that deserved better, and he'd known it, and he'd kept telling himself there was time to fix it, and then there wasn't. The cancer had moved fast, 6 months from diagnosis. He'd quit the job in week 2 and hadn't regretted it for a single hour. His daughter Paige was 9 now. She came to the garage after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, did her homework at the old metal desk in the office while he worked, and occasionally handed him tools with the calm authority of someone who'd been doing it for years. Which she had. She knew the difference between a torque wrench and a breaker bar. She knew not to touch the battery terminals. She knew that when her father got quiet over an engine, it meant something was clicking into place in his head, and you didn't interrupt that. He thought about her while he rolled the floor creeper under the Rolls-Royce that afternoon. He thought about Claire, too. He always did. Working. She used to say he loved engines more than people, and he'd always said that wasn't fair, and she'd always said she wasn't wrong. They were both right, probably. He lay under the car for a long time without doing anything. Just listening, even though the car was silent. Looking at how things were routed. Following the logic of it. Helena Whitmore came back at 4:30. She didn't call first. She just arrived, which told him something about how she moved through the world. Her driver parked the SUV and stayed in it. She walked into the garage herself and found Sutton at the workbench, reviewing one of the diagnostic reports she'd left with him, a 40-page document from the Detroit firm with 17 color-coded wiring diagrams. He had a cup of coffee next to him that had gone cold. "Any progress?" she asked. "Some," he said. She looked at the rolls, which sat exactly where it had been. "You haven't opened the hood." "I opened it this morning," he said. Closed it again. A pause. "The Detroit report says the issue is likely in the high-voltage junction." "The Detroit report is wrong," he said, not unkindly, just clearly. She went still in the way that people go still when they're deciding whether to be offended. "They spent 3 days," she said. "I know. They have 7 technicians and 2 diagnostic rigs that cost more than this building." "Probably," he said. "So how is their report wrong?" He set it down and looked at her. "The junction box is fine. All 3 certified techs checked it, and they weren't wrong about that. That's solid work. The problem is they checked it in isolation. They ran each system independently. The network scan was clean because each node looks fine when you test it alone." He picked up his coffee, realized it was cold, set it back down. "But this car's control architecture runs on a priority handshake between the BCM and the gateway module. If those 2 don't complete the handshake in the right sequence at startup, everything downstream stays locked. The car thinks it's protecting itself." She looked at him. "The handshake failed because there's a corroded ground point behind the left B-pillar trim. Not badly corroded, barely visible. But at cold start, when current draw spikes, the resistance goes just over threshold and the handshake drops at step 4. Car locks up. Looks totally dead. It's been doing this since winter, I'd guess." She was quiet for a moment. "That's it," she said. "That's it. They couldn't find that in 11 days. They weren't looking for it," he said. "When you've got a car this new, with this many reported symptoms, the tendency is to go complex. It's almost always something small." She looked at the car again, then at him. "Can you fix it?" "Already did," he said. "Cleaned the ground, verified the sequence, ran a startup cycle twice. She's fine." The silence in the garage was complete for a moment. Outside, a truck went by on the highway. The fluorescent light above the workbench hummed its single note. "You fixed it," she said. "Yes. In 1 day. Most of it was reading the reports," he said. "The fix itself took about 20 minutes. She didn't say anything else right away." He watched her face go through something. Not anger, exactly, and not quite embarrassment either. Something more like the recalibration of a system that had just received information it wasn't prepared for. "What do I owe you?" she said. He told her. She looked up from her phone. "That's it?" "That's it. The Detroit firm charged." "I know what they charged," he said. "I'm not the Detroit firm." She asked if she could wait while he did a final check on the car before she drove it back. He said that was fine. She sat in the office, on the folding chair next to the metal desk, and he noticed her look at the framed photo on the desk. Claire and Paige at the lake, the summer before the diagnosis. Paige was 3 in it. Claire was laughing at something off-camera, mid-law, eyes half-closed, and she looked completely like herself. "Your daughter?" Helena said. "Yes, pretty kid." A pause. "And the woman?" "My wife," he said. "Then, she passed, 6 years ago." "I'm sorry," she said. He nodded once and went back to the car. He wasn't sure what made him say what he said next. He wasn't a man who talked much, and he particularly wasn't a man who talked to clients about his life. But something in the afternoon light and the particular stillness of the garage made him say it. "She used to say I was better with machines than with people," he said from under the hood. She wasn't wrong. "But she was also the one who told me to come back here when she was gone. Said a town like Dunmore needed someone who paid attention to the small things. Said I'd be good at it." He lowered the hood. "I think she was right," he said. Helena Whitmore was quiet for a moment. "I've had 3 different advisors tell me the last 4 years that the problem with my portfolio was complexity," she said. "Too many instruments, too many hedge positions, too many overlapping strategies." She stopped. "I kept saying they weren't looking hard enough at the details." "Maybe they were," Sutton said. "Maybe the detail was the complexity." She looked at him. Neither of them said anything else for a little while. She drove the Ghost out of the lot at 6:15, and it started on the first try, clean and quiet, the way Rolls-Royces were supposed to start. She paused at the lot exit and lowered the window. "Farley was right," she said. He didn't say anything. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Why are you here?" "In Dunmore. With the 2-bay garage." She said it without judgment, but with the directness of someone who was used to asking exactly what she wanted to know. You clearly. She stopped. You could be somewhere else. He thought about it for a moment, really thought about it, the way he didn't always bother to. Paige's school is 3 blocks from here, he said finally. She can walk. She does walk every Tuesday and Thursday, and she comes in and does her homework at that desk. And then we drive home together and she tells me what happened in her day. He looked at the lot, the gravel, the faded sign. I spent a long time somewhere else. Didn't do it very well. Helena Whitmore nodded slowly. That's a good answer, she said. It's the only one I've got, he said. She drove away. He stood in the lot for a little while, listening to the Ghost's engine fade down Route 9 until it was gone. A clean sound. Everything running in sequence the way it was supposed to. Then he went inside and started cleaning up for the day. Paige came in at 3:30 the next Tuesday and dropped her backpack on the desk with the particular thud of a kid who'd had a full day. Did you fix the fancy car? She asked. How do you know about that? Mrs. Aldrich told her daughter, and her daughter told Emma Voss, and Emma Voss told me at recess. He handed her a granola bar from the drawer. News travel, she said, you fixed it in like 5 minutes after a bunch of people spent $1 million on it. 11 days, he said, and 340, not $1 million. She considered this with the precise accounting instincts she'd inherited from her mother. That's still a lot. It is. She climbed into the desk chair, spun once, and pulled out her math worksheet. Then she stopped. Dad? Yeah. Why couldn't they fix it? He thought about how to say it in a way that was true and also made sense to a 9-year-old. They were looking at the big things, he said, because the car was expensive, and the problem seemed serious. They kept thinking it had to be something big, something complicated. But the problem was actually really small. So small they kept looking right past it. Paige considered this with the gravity she applied to all problems she found genuinely interesting. Like how you always say the noise is never where you think it is, she said. Exactly like that. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to her worksheet. He went back to the car in Bay 1, a 2019 F-150 with a transmission shudder. Its owner was convinced was catastrophic, and Sutton was fairly sure was a worn clutch pack, which was annoying but not catastrophic. He'd know more in an hour. He worked in the quiet of the afternoon, his daughter doing multiplication tables 10 feet away, the garage smelling the way it always smelled, oil and metal, and the faint chemical sweetness of brake cleaner. Outside, a cardinal landed on the Dr. Pepper machine and sat there for a moment, red against the gray November sky, and then was gone. He thought about Claire. He thought about the way she'd said go back in those last weeks when she was tired but still very much herself. Go back and slow down and pay attention to the small things. He'd thought at the time she was talking about Dunmore, about the garage, about pace of life. He'd been right, but only partly. She'd also been talking about Paige, about Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, about granola bars in the desk drawer, about a 9-year-old who knew the difference between a torque wrench and a breaker bar and would someday, if she wanted, know a great deal more. The transmission in the F-150 gave up a particular shudder when he engaged third, and he felt it through the lift and knew, with the certainty that came from 20 years of paying attention, exactly what it was. Small, fixable, already known. He reached for the right tool and went to work.